Good morning. Welcome to the show. Donnie Bovine, our specialist in leadership training and business development. I am so happy to have you on the show. I know you're crazy busy, and I'm excited about having you on the show today. Welcome.
Oh, brother, thanks for having me on, man. The conversation we've already had and kind of the pregame getting into this, I'm just stoked to be hanging out with you. It's really my honor to hang out with you.
I've watched a lot of your work, and it's something that really does resonate with my soul and the work that you do. And I think it's interesting for our audience to really get to know you a little bit about your background and some of the stuff that what really sparked you, what caused you to kind of create what you've done, and this master program you have. The Badass Business Summit is something that look, all of you business professionals, when you're done with this, you're going to want to go to it, right? I want you to understand Donnie and a little bit of his background, what caused this, and why I feel it's such a special, program to get involved with.
Thanks for teeing that up, man. So, I spent 20 years working for other people, making other people wealthy. Grew up in this blue collar family where you just work, you get a job, you retire, and that's, the sum of life. And I turned 40, and it was kind of the first time I ever realized that you could start your own business. You could do this thing called be an entrepreneur. And so I gave it a go. I jumped out, launched my company, and 6 months in, with my wife asleep upstairs, I walk out the back door of my farm and her Jeep's missing. And so I call the police and I'm like, I think somebody stole my car. And they said, no, sir, it's been repossessed. And I realized I was going to have to go in and tell my wife the rest of the story, which was the mortgage was 3 months behind and we were about to lose our dream farm, the thing we'd worked all of our entire life for. And I'd already cashed in my 401k trying to make this business work. And she looked at me and she said, I'll cash in my 401k, but that's our last lifeline. You have to make this work. Get off your duff and go sell something. And, for me growing up, I didn't understand that I spent my life working for other people and somebody always telling me what to do. And now I had this business and nobody telling me what to do. And I didn't know what the heck I was actually doing. So long story short, turned that around. I now run three companies, have one of the top podcasts, five best-selling books, and a partridge in a pear tree. But, one thing they don't tell you is as you're building a business, you're going to meet the dude in the mirror because your business is going to work a hell of a lot more on you than you'll ever work on your business.
I'm always amazed by the entrepreneurial journey, right? We come out with this kind of like this idea that, oh, I'm going to work for myself. It's going to be a lot better. I just can't stand working for other people, and then you start to realize that to really fulfill on that takes more work on not just the business idea, right? Taking the idea of what we're going to do for business, and all right, by the way, how are people going to pay me, and how am I going to go get the business? How am I going to perform the business? How am I going to get paid for the business? How am I going to report the business to the government and all that good stuff? How am I going to hire people? All those parts and pieces that are in there. It's there was no class I took, right? They did a great job
Right.
of teaching me about algebra, right, which I've never used. I mean,
Right.
maybe I've used a couple of
Right.
things to figure out how to do corners on a building or something, but very little of that was ever used, and I had no coaches, right? I had nobody who taught me how to do this, and sometimes it felt like your dream was about to slip away from you, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, the entrepreneurial business is a series of amazing highs and very tragic lows.
Mm.
I promise you, every good day is going to be chased by a bad. Every bad day, you're going to hopefully find a good. Every good day, you'll find a great. But nobody's out there saying, for me, I'll speak to my truth. All these people were go start a business, be an entrepreneur. You can create your own life of freedom, and I bought that ideology hook, line, and sinker. I'm like, oh, cool, that's for me. I want that life. I want to chase that dream because the life I was living was felt like somebody else's dream. Right. What they don't tell you is all the things that you already said is okay, cool. Not only do you got to come up with a business, now you got to go get clients. Now you got to service those clients. Now you got to build those clients. Now you got to report all that stuff, all those things. And what happens to most people is they end up building a business like they're on an episode of Survivor. They're trying to be the last man standing versus because what happens is business gets so bad at some point that you don't want anybody to know how bad business is because you feel like if anybody knows, nobody will do business with you. So you make yourself this island out there all on your own. Well, misery loves company. And because misery loves company, you're not sharing or asking for help and support. You continually go down this spiraling path, which is what happened to me. And I kept screwing everything up because instead of seeking out mentors and people who had done this before me are doing it on levels that I wanted to get to, I kept just putting my head down going, oh, I'll figure it out. I'm just going to push through it. And pushing through of it wasn't working. And
It's like the more fear I have, the more closed up my
yep.
options become, right? In that fear, I mean, you couldn't have said that more eloquently. I've noticed through my entrepreneurial experience that it's always about being a great entrepreneur. It's about taking the billions of ideas across the world, and billions and billions and billions of ideas, and presenting them at every opportunity to grow your business, right? But as I get more fearful and bills and this and afraid of standing up or asking for help or even thinking I'm supposed to know it all. Most of my stuff was all came from something I brought with me from childhood, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that stupid feeling, not enough feeling, they're going to find out I'm a fraud feeling, right? And not knowing that, hey, by the way, every one of us, every single entrepreneur you've ever met knows that feeling every single
Yeah.
day.
Well, you're right. Everybody sees the Instagram story, right? They
Yeah.
see the aftermath of the tragedies. From I don't care if they're a famous music singer, they're a famous YouTuber, or they're a famous entrepreneur, they're a famous speaker, movie star, whatever. We see the aftermath of the tragedy. You don't get to see the story of the crap they went through to get there. I mean, you look at a famous musician, and 99% of them sat in old dusty dive bars with heavy smokers and people spitting tobacco on the floor and crap. Your famous movie stars did these horrible B-rated films and things that they hope nobody ever sees and finds them in. Your YouTubers, go watch their beginning YouTube videos and how crappy those things are. And it's the same thing for business owners. Every successful business, from the biggest billionaires on the planet. I mean, look at somebody like Elon Musk, who's one of the most well-known billionaires in the world. How much did he almost lose everything trying to build Tesla, then SpaceX? The dude had to go basically beg money from friends to keep those ideas alive. And we forget about those stories, and people want to skip all that hard stuff. They want the end without going through it. But the magic of everything, the magic of figuring out anything you want to do in life, is going through it. And it's not about figuring out and getting to the other end. It's who you become going through that process, who you evolve into going through that process. And then my favorite thing is then turning around and teaching all of that
Mm,
to somebody coming up behind you. And
mm.
that's where the magic of all this comes from. And that's where you see the people that become uber successful are the ones that teach others how to do what they accomplished.
Well, I think though, as you look at it, one of the struggles I had was seeing that, right?
Yeah.
I've got this built-in liar, right? My brain lies. I call him Fred. Right? In fact, I've named my brain Fred. And
Nice.
Fred, he's kind of a jerk. And Fred comes up with this stuff and he tells me I'm okay. It's my ego. He's like, this, and you should know this, and don't let them find out. And Fred will not ask anybody for help because Fred thinks he's supposed to know. And, and I had to name him because it's actually I've got this funny relationship with Fred in that Fred, you know, is supposed to be helping me survive, right? And maybe some prehistoric way he was surviving, but today the business world is so dynamic, and and by the way, not just the business as a leader, I need to be able to show up and bring creativity to the game. And if I show up carrying, the shame and guilt and fears and all that stuff from my child, all that stuff I bring in there, I get pretty myopic pretty quickly, and I start to go into survival mode you were
Yep.
talking about, and I have very little chances from there to get dynamic and bring the billions of ideas to the table.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I love the fact you named him Fred. I've never named him, but when you name a thing, it makes it more real, and you actually can work on it. What for me is what I've discovered is the moment that fear pops up, that's the direction I need to go. There was an old stand-up arcade game that I forget the name of it. Well, Dragonlance, that's the exact name of it. And the way this arcade game worked was you had this knight that you controlled, and it looked like a cartoon. And then you'd be battling this dragon. There'd be a flash on the screen, and when the flash on the screen happened, you had to slam the remote right to that flash. And if you got the combination right, you slayed the dragon. If you didn't, the dragon ate you. Right? The basic gist of the game. I sucked at the game. I was horrible at it. But I've learned that for me, when those fears like imposter syndrome pops up, or I'm intimidated to reach out and talk to somebody, or there's an action I need to take, but for some reason that fear is popping in my head, prevent me from taking that action. That fear is literally like the universe saying, dude, that's the right direction to go. That's the exact thing you need to do next. Now, I'm not talking about the fight or flight thing, right? Where if you're in a dangerous situation and you're fearful for your life or something, all right, don't do the thing, eh? But if you're in a business growth or a personal growth and there's an opportunity to learn something, move, evolve, grow, and a fear pops up, just like in that Dragonlance game, you got to slam everything you got straight at it. Because every time I've gotten to a room that I didn't think I belonged, every time I've been in a situation where I was intimidated by the people I was around, or anytime any of that type stuff popped up and I got myself in that situation, inevitably I've learned that, yeah, I deserve to be in that room. I deserve to be in that conversation of, holy crap, I've got knowledge they need, they have knowledge I need, and we can all grow together. And I think half the battle to success is stepping into that fear. The other half of the battle is being okay screwing up along the way, getting through that fear, because life simply is an experiment. And as long as you understand life is an experiment, there's no such thing as actually failing the thing. This way of doing it just didn't work. So lean into those fears and experience the hell out of things.
I think that's some right on stuff. I mean, I really want to get more into that, developing that muscle of stepping into it, right? Stepping into it, right? Getting there. And so when you're looking at a young entrepreneur or an old entrepreneur or an entrepreneur getting ready to start into the journey, and I'm speaking to the one who's sitting at home this morning listening to the podcast, and they're fretting about what they're supposed to do today, right? And all of a sudden, there's that they're listening to a podcast because they're going, I'm looking for the answer of how to build. Look, I want to build this idea, but I don't know how to do it, right? And I almost venture to say that the I don't knows of the world, anytime I say I don't know, the truth is I'm shutting myself down, right?
Correct.
It's kind of I am connected to all the information of the universe, and in fact, never before have I been so connected. And when I start to do with the I don't knows, right, somewhere in that conversation, I've got to step through that. Now, how do we start to talk to that entrepreneur that's sitting out there, and where do we start? Like, if I'm looking at Bob or Betty, and they're both getting ready to start let's say they're starting a painting company, right? They want to go start their own little painting company, and they're sitting there, they have no work yet, right? Or what are we doing to help them go from not working to working?
Yeah. So the number one thing anybody has to do is become the face of their company, right? Because if nobody knows about you, there's no business is ever going to happen. So what I would tell, and we'll go with the painting company, that's fun. If you're going to start a painting company, then you need to go tell people that you can paint their house. Like literally, you could do the simplest thing, and you don't even need necessarily business cards. Even people get hung up if they got to create a website and do all this stuff. No, no, no. You just got to find somebody that'll pay you for your service. So go down your neighborhood, knock on doors, and say, "Hey, look, I'm starting a painting company, and I'm looking to paint a few homes. Do you have anything around your house that you need painted?" And start small. Go with your neighbors, go with your friends, family. You'll be blown away by the people that will say, you know what? Yeah, how much? And make sure you cover the cost of your paint, cover the cost of your time, and start painting. And then when you win that first job, I don't care how big or small that first job is, over freaking deliver. Like service the hell out of them. Paint better than you've ever painted in your life. Clean up after yourself than you have to clean up. Do more work than you told them you were going to do. Go above and beyond. And I promise, if you service them like nobody's tomorrow, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to feel good about it. The second thing is they're going to tell somebody else about the level of work you did for them, and clients 2, 3, and 4 are likely going to come from introductions from them. but you got to over deliver, over service. And then you just rinse, wash, repeat and keep doing it. There's a lot of other things that'll come along the way, but the whole goal is go get that first client, service the crap out of them, and then go get the next client. And every time over deliver on the simplest things and watch them help you build your business. It's really that simple to build a business in this day and age.
More than ever before, it's easier to communicate to folks faster and better. And a lot of people actually absolutely are looking for the silver bullet out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, no, just the knocking on the doors. Look, make a 8.5 by 11 flyer up and go door to door knocking and saying, hey, look, I'm happy to paint your bedrooms for X number of dollars. Let me give you a price on it now. And just moving and talking and moving and talking and moving. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't start before the sun comes up and end when the sun goes down, and you're not working in between there, right? This whole idea that people give me this, well, I need work-life balance, and I got to be able to go to the gym first, and I got good. Look, if you're gonna go to the gym, get up at 4:30, right? Be out of the gym at 5:30. Be setting yourself up to start walking a neighborhood by 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. When people are coming out of the driveways, hand them a flyer. You see them driving down the street. Find ways to get out there and start early and work relentless hours, and the business will come, right? But it takes a relentless type. I heard someone say, maybe it was Elon, or owning a business is a lot like chewing glass every day, and then chewing glass, and then looking over the abyss at any given time, right? But in order to do this, you really have to be in the grind mode, and I can look back over CDO Group, which is 26 years old, and it's literally been that feeling. And every time I feel like I want to cruise or coast, I get this. I realize that I start going backwards, right? And
Well,
even if I've gotten bigger, right? Say it's different. I don't do the day to day stuff, but I'm always working on the leaders, the people, the business. My skill, my things I'm doing are different than they were when I started the business. But there's never something I can't be doing to help develop the business.
yeah, I love that. I want to speak to the whole grind thought process because I think people, when they hear the idea of hustle and grind, they think one of two ways of, oh, I'm never going to be that person, or, oh, yeah, that's the life I want to live, right? There's really no in between in those. Here's what I want people to understand. I run a full working farm in addition to 3 companies, right? To do this farm is a lot of work compounded with running these companies. People need to understand is every morning I have to go out and let my goats out into the pasture. They can't open the barn door. They can't feed themselves, right? So I have to do that for them. Every evening, I've got to go put the goats up, right? They can't put themselves away. Predators will get them. All kinds of bad things will happen. I don't get a day off from taking care of those goats, right? I chose the lifestyle of having all these critters on the farm, and it's my responsibility to make sure they're all taken care of. So it's not the hustle and grind. It's do the work until the work is done, right? I can't simply just say, hey, you know what? Let's fly to freaking, New Zealand today and just go. I have to have plans in place for somebody to take care of the goats. I have to have a strategy in place for somebody to water all the animals, do all the things, right? That is a life I chose. What people need to understand is when you're an entrepreneur, you chose that lifestyle. To be successful in that lifestyle, you have to do the work until the work's done. And there are certain triggers and things you have to do in business to make that business successful. You've got to go sell, right? You've got to go tell people about your business. And especially early on, you got to do that every day. And you better make that the first priority every day because we all know once the day gets going, sales goes right out the window, right? If you don't do it and get it done, you're going to make all the excuses in the world to never come back and do the sales. So you do the work until the work done is you got to commit. You're going to do X amount of sales behaviors on a daily basis. And that day is not done until the sales are taken care of, your customers are taken care of, your marketing's taken care of, your team's taken care of. You've done all the things you've committed to as an entrepreneur. When that's done, your day is over. And I need people to understand that's not a grind. That's what you signed up for. right? That's a life. There's no such thing as this work-life balance. It's a damn myth. When you run your own business, it's work-life integration. It's all one
That's right.
thing, right? And the only people that are working for work-life balance are people who hate what they do. They're working for the weekends. They're working for the time off because they hate the life they're living. You can't build anything in this world without becoming passionate about it. You don't turn your passion into a business. You get passionate about what you do and watch the life you can live because of it. So I just really need people to wrap their head around this philosophy, because what happens is that misery loves company. They start doing things and they don't like the activities and things they're doing because they think it's work versus the responsibility of saying, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to build a business. That's what you signed up for.
It's great. In that, that going out there and finding, it's always funny when people tell me they have a hard time with sales, and I'm like, look, when I started CDO Group, back then it was an outsourcing construction management company, and at the time there was no such thing, right? There was no such people either had in-house project managers that worked for them, and companies like McDonald's or Chipotle's, or back then it was Boston Market and Einstein Bagels and those brands. They're like, I would call them up and I'd say, hey, I had worked for those companies beforehand, and I said, look, I had worked myself out of a bunch of jobs, right? And I
Mm.
thought, this didn't make sense. I'd go work for a company. I'd build, 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 and I'd get a knock on the door and say, "Hey, we're not building anymore. You lost your job." And I'm like, "This sucks. I'm not gonna build a career out of this. Every 4 or 5 years, I have to go look for another job somewhere." And I said, maybe I could do the same thing for them on an outsourcing basis and do for multiple companies. And one comes, one goes. But I'd always work for the same company. I could do it myself. And that's where the whole idea came from. And as I would talk to customers, I'd be literally inventing the business, right?
Right.
I think that's a spot where if if an entrepreneur, instead of looking at sales calls as some sort of bad dating exercise, like I think a lot of people think of it like walking across the bar to the girl who's going to ask to dance, right? I think a lot of people think of sales that way. Like it's this experience of, I'm gonna have to walk over and ask her to dance and she's gonna say no to me, right? For me, a lot of people I talk to have that experience. Where I think it's different is if you could think of it in a way of, hey, while I'm talking to you, I'm creating my business, right?
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah. I like that.
articulating what I love about it and my passion and what I'm going to do for you and why you should hire me and why I love this business. I think if you can go from that point of view, it just changes the experience of telling the story when you're calling people to tell them that story.
I like that. And I think there's a lot to say about being passionate about what you sell, because passion does sell. I mean, if you are really into whatever you're doing, people can feel that energy, right? They can feel that drive of you being into it. What I need people to continue to wrap their head around is they don't actually have a sales problem. And here's what I mean is most people, if they sit across from the right person who's interested in what they have, they'll have a great conversation and a deal will happen, right? That relationship will usually come together. People are really good in that conversation. I've stood in front of hundreds of rooms and said, how many of you, if you could get in the right conversation with the right person who's interested in you have, how many of you can close that deal? And like the whole room raises their hand, right? I mean, everybody's good there. It's getting to that conversation that everybody sucks at, right? They don't know how to get to that final conversation. So they don't really have a sales problem. They have a business development problem, because sales is that final yes, no. Everything else is business development, right? And if you can understand that my job is to get into as many of those final yes, no conversations, then life becomes a lot more simpler, because then business development is simply a math equation. If I do enough of this, it's going to lead to enough of this, to lead enough of this, and lead to enough of this. That's going to ultimately get me to that final conversation. Building relationships with your potential clients is just like trying to marry somebody. It's not necessarily like trying to pick a person up at the bar. It's trying to spend the rest of your life with this individual, right? And you've got to court them and invest in them and show them your true side. And what people do is they treat it like a one night stand. So they only get to see the best version of you. They only get to see the moves and the transactions. And if you sell like you're trying to make a transaction happen, like you're trying to get that one night stand, you're going to lose every time, because you might get the transaction, but you're going to be in such a churn of clientele coming in, coming out, and you're going to be called the same thing we call people who sleep around all the damn time, right?
That's right.
You know, you got to treat it like you're trying to get married and you're courting these individuals. You know, you need to look at it. Do I really want to do business with this person? Is this a person I want to spend the rest of my life with? And that mindset alone, I've found, you know, and I call it what I have a cocktail with them. You know, do I actually like this individual? Do I actually want to do business with them? If you'll change your mindset when you're going to have these conversations, that changes the dynamic. And now you go, okay, cool. If I got to spend my time, my life with these people, then I need to put the processes and systems in place up front in the business development activities to make sure these people are qualified to do business with me, right? Are they actually going to do the things I need them to do to justify them doing business with me? Are they going to spend the time? Are they going to invest the capital? You know, do they have the ability to do the work and the things? Do I like them? Will I have a cocktail with them? You know, and the more you dive into that dynamics, you're going to find that you're in a whole different level of conversation with people because you're no longer trying to sell everybody. You're trying to see if they're a fit for your world. And that dynamic is really saved my butt tremendously along the way because I quit trying to sell everybody in this kind of transactional space. And I've just built some of the most coolest friends and fans and people that I do business with all across the world because I'm truly invested in their success. These are the people I want to hang out with. These are the people that I want to be with. And that makes it a family like atmosphere that everybody wants to be a part of.
You know, that's a hard appetite to set up, or way to set it up, right? To think holistically about the relationship from the get go,
Yep.
right? Because I remember when in my early days, I was so worried about paying bills. I just wanted to get a deal, any deal, and I would beg, borrow, whatever I had to do to get the deal. And a lot of those customers could feel that, and they would take
Yep.
advantage of me,
Yep.
right? They would take advantage of that way of being. And my guess is that's very similar in the dating world, right? If you really
Yep.
look at it as humans are. And you know, when I really stock back, and today when I want to build those long-term great relationships with customers who have my best interests in mind, right? Some of that will take a little bit of practice. And if you get into a relationship and you've got a user client, they're out there. They're look, every year we lose a couple of clients because we decide that's not the kind of client we want to do business with. They
Yep.
showed up one way when we started talking to them, and along the way behaviors change, and they use our people, or they're lie, or they're manipulative, and we're like, hey, look, it's just we've learned to say no in a proper way. You know, we
Yep.
kind of let them off easy, and but getting rid of some customers, those problem customers that are they become 80% of your conversations in a day, and they're 80% of your problems and 80% of the place, and you're probably making 30, less than 20% of your revenue off of them, right? And they
Yep.
become 80% of your problems.
Well, and a couple of things I want to unpack in there. I 100% agree with you. The first one is, man, if you're in your first year of business, being and pardon the expression, but being a business whore is a real damn thing,
That's right.
right? Because you need to get the revenue coming in, however you can get the revenue coming in. And the beauty of doing that in the early years is you're going to learn a lot of types of clientele that you don't want to work with, and you're going to learn a lot of things about the business you don't want to do. And I think there's extreme value, more so in some cases, figuring out what you don't want to do versus trying to figure out what you desperately need to do. So early on, say yes to way more things than you should, because that's going to be a hell of a teacher. The second thing is, if every year, if you're not purposely firing clients, you will not scale,
That's right.
right? Because
That's right.
it comes down to that if you're not firing clients, you desperately need them and you're trying to hold on to them, which means your business is not evolving. And you're either going declining in revenue or you're flatlining. And for me, flatlining is declining. So you've got to look at your client base and go, okay, which current clients no longer fit the business model that we are in the direction we're going right now. And I promise every year that's going to evolve and change, or it better be, you know, or you're building a stagnant business.
Well, I think the same thing happens with employees,
Yep.
your business model, right? And now there's where, Donnie, that's where we need, coaches like you, your help, right? Throughout my career and throughout my growth, I've had a great coach around me, or even teams of coaches around me, and the longer I'm in it, the bigger and bigger that network of people are that that stand around and help support and look at, put the mirror in my face and go, Anthony, look what you're doing here. Look, these numbers don't add up, right? Because I need to be able to. I need someone who can help even today. No matter as you grow and you scale, and we broke 50 million, we broke 80 million. Now we got all 50 states. We got great numbers, great number. It's amazing, but I still have character defects in the way that we behave that are preventing us from growing, that are preventing us from going to that next level, and I can't see them. If I could, I would have changed them, and I would have
100%.
right. I would have changed. I mean, look, even where we're here, I would change them. It's not that I'm trying to sabotage myself. I just can't see it. I can't see the behavior because I'm in the fire. I'm too close to the fire.
Yep.
I need to bring the those higher level coaches in that can help me look and go, yeah, hey, let's look. You don't need to have that set of projects you're doing over there. That they're bad. Yes, hey,
Yep.
stay out of that neighborhood. Stay.
Yep.
Let's move shift over here where you're making 30% more with 20% less cost. And
Yep.
this is a model that's working for you smarter. Your ego gets a little caught up because sometimes my ego get caught up and like, oh, I want to keep that.
Right.
I'll prove to you. And they're
Yep.
like, yeah, you don't need to. Look, you need to be working over here where we know you're going to get it. And I think that's the gift of having a coach like you, Donnie, where you and your team are able to help guide entrepreneurs through that minefield of of Fredness.
Yeah, Fredness, I love it. I've looked at life oftentimes like a blacksmith in a forge. Sometimes I'm the knife, sometimes I'm swinging the hammer, and a lot of my journey is been spent by other people forging me into the guy I need to become to get to that next level. Because to your point, there's so many times where I'm so in it. I mean, my blade sitting in the fire, getting ready to get pounded on because I just can't see everything that's going on in the business. And let's be honest, a lot of times we shouldn't, but we make a lot of emotional decisions when it comes to building our businesses. And oftentimes when you make an emotional decision, it's a wrong decision. And I've too often gotten on the backside of a decision of some sort going, crap, that was a completely emotional move. We didn't even look at the things we should have looked at, and we found us there. So it's nice to have somebody before you make that move that can sit there across from you and go, hey, are you looking at this? Have you seen this? What is you doing here that can help you call the shots? Because as we're building a business, oftentimes we're almost creating something from nothing. Other people may have carved a path in a similar industry or even in the same industry, but we're still creating it uniquely for us. And there's just too much value to be about being around people that are going through or have been through what you're going through that can say, hey, look at it this way. Maybe you should look at it this direction. Don't go here. This is what you're going to see there. And then to your last point is ego's a killer. You've got to have an ego to build a business. I'm a firm believer that without an ego, you're not going to build. But that ego, you've got to keep it in check, which means you've got to have people around you that can call you on your crap and doing it in a loving, non-challenging manner, because you're often going to be gunslinging making these decisions, because as running a business, you make a lot of fast decisions, and you need to be able to learn to slow them down. But you got to have those people on the other side that are, will say, hey, look, dude, you're, I won't say it that way, you're stepping on yourself. Freaking, you need to check your six and go, okay, how's this moving the business forward? What's that next move you're going to make, and how it's going to impact and infect everything.
It's the that's the game I love about where I've watched the path. That you talk about that path of entrepreneurship, right? The man I've become to lead the company that the companies I lead, the man that I've become has evolved, and I think that's been the gift of being an entrepreneur, right? To stand in that spot and go, all right, I'm going to have to change, right? The man who started 26 years ago with CDO Group is not the guy who I am. A little over 7 years ago, there was a massive change in my behavior, right? I gave up whole ways of lifestyle and the way I ate, the way I drank, the way I behaved, right? There was you could see the guy that I was when I started the company, the different evolutions of Anthony, and you know, some of that I call there's a big red bag of crap that I carried around with me, right? And a lot of that stuff I brought to the game as an entrepreneur, and some of it worked, right? Some of that stuff that um, when I was a kid, one of the most impactful things that happened to me was I remember being on a playground and realizing how poor I was compared to the other kids. And I remember defending I'm not going to be poor was one of the reasons why I became an entrepreneur. And like
Right.
part of that was my goal, right? Like that fought to get me up. I'm going to prove that I'm not going to be poor, and I could, right? And but somewhere in there, that became a limiting belief, right? But some of that, fighting became a way of being that maybe wasn't needed anymore, right? Some of that stuff I had to unpack, I guess what I'm getting is as I looked at that bag of crap that I carried with me, some of those beliefs and stuff that I had about, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not, whatever those things were holding me back in that bag that I carried, that was this weight. As I opened that up and I worked with a coach to go, all right, look, you've obviously done this. You're doing pretty good. 99%. You're on the top 5% of business growth or podcast growth or whatever the things you're working on. You got something working, right? You can here, that's a good rock. Let's let go of that one, right? As that bag gets lighter, it seems like creativity has opened up wider, right? So I think one of the things I always tell entrepreneurs is if you're not seeing options, check the bag, right?
Right.
Check what's slowing you down from seeing the options, the opportunities. Because if the I don't knows are slowing you down, I can't see it. I can't. What's holding you back in the bag? That once I let go of that way of being, will allow freedom to come, vision to come. See things a lot clearer. Maybe even let go of ways of being that are making it hard to operate. Right? Some of the stuff that I believed I had to I had to be the leader. I had to be the president of CDO Group. Today, I'm not the president of CDO Group. My wife is, and she does a way better job of it. I mean, it was here. I hired a business company to come in and tell me to let go of being the president of the company, and I'm like, what? Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've served your purpose. It's time for you to become the founder, and we're doing some other things with the company, and she's going to take over as president, and that happened 2.5 years ago, and it was great because I remember this woman. She comes in my office, right? She comes in, she comes walking in my office. She's a big redheaded woman, and she's big personality. She walks in my office. She goes, Anthony, today we're gonna lock your door. What do you mean you're gonna lock my door? You go, well, today we're gonna lock your door, and you're gonna have your focus. And I'm like, great. I'll be able to focus and get stuff done. Yeah, great, great. She goes, no, no, no. We want to keep you in. I go, what do you mean? She goes, yeah, you walk out there and you get into everybody's business all day long.
Yep.
You've hired this great team of people, and you keep going you walk in the room, and you take all the oxygen out of the room.
Yep.
You have some sort of insignificant problem, right? It's a significance problem. You want to walk out there and prove how good you are. And I'm like,
Yep.
well, I paid you to tell me this. What? What do you mean I'm paying you to tell me this? And she goes, yeah, yeah. She goes, yeah, you have a significance problem. She goes, look, you have great people. These 6 leaders that you've hired, they run each part of those divisions. You get 1 hour a week with each one of them. Plan what you're going to say to them wisely. You're not allowed to talk to anybody else in the company but these 6 people. And I was like, for 3 months, I stewed. Oh my
Oh,
God, I
torture.
stewed. Torture. Donnie, it was torture. And it was tough, right? Because she said to me, she goes, well, what do you want to do? You're gonna have to find something to fill in some of that gap. So that's where I got the podcast going, and I also took up flying planes, learned to fly airplanes, right? Which was helpful. She gave me something else to fill that gap. But it was a great lesson for as we develop where our ego is, having someone like that I could trust, that could guide me through where I was going to go. It was not an easy task. It was not an easy change to go through, and really pick your coaches wisely as you do so.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny because I've been on both sides of a similar conversation, and it always sucks being on the receiving end, but all growth sucks at some point,
That's
you
right.
know, and you've got to go through it to become it, and most people want to skip the journey, right? I developed a technique for me personally to help me figure out where I need to level up and how I approach my coaches now and what I need to work on. And it happened after I told my wife we were about to lose everything. So I hope your listeners will take this and use it as their own arsenal. And what I did the night that I told my wife that we were about to lose everything is I went upstairs to my bathroom and I looked myself dead in the eye and I tried to say the words I love you. That just sounded too weird. I couldn't get them out of my mouth. But I changed it and said, I'm proud of you. And instantly when I said I'm proud of you, my subconscious, my mind, my being, my everything said, no, you're not. You're not doing the things you signed up to do. You signed up to be a damn entrepreneur, but yet you're not reaching out to people. You're not getting in the conversations. You're not trying to run a business. You're trying to do this work-life balance where you only work when you want to work and you only want to live the way you want to live. You're not doing the work until the work's done. So what I realized is when you go to the mirror and you say the words, I'm proud of you, whatever pops up when Fred starts speaking, you know, that's the thing you either got to go to work on or fix because your subconscious is not going to allow you to BS yourself for too long, right? You can lie to yourself, but not if you're really trying to win at life, right? So when you go to the mirror, whatever thing pops up after you say, I'm proud of you, is the thing you've got to go work on and fix. And what's interesting is as I started working through those things and getting better at building a business, I got to a point where we had turned the companies around and we were doing very, very, very successful. Things were going great. And I remember going to the mirror going, I'm proud of you. And instantly I went, damn, no, I'm not. Because the entire time I've spent rebuilding these companies and making them what they are, I've neglected my relationship with my wife. I got married to the business and not to our household. And I'm like, crap. So now I got to go figure out how to do that. Cool. Now, how do I integrate the business and my wife, our farm? How do I make it all one? It became all one because I learned how to talk to her about the things in the business. I learned she became my Jiminy Cricket, right? I started bouncing decisions and ideas off of her, and she still doesn't know the intricacies of the business, but she's been one of my best advisors because she's emotionally detached from the outcome of the company, other than she likes the things we get to do because of the success of the company. So what I would tell people is every night before you go to bed, go to that damn mirror and say, I'm proud of you, and see what the hell pops up, because whatever does, I promise you, if you go work on and get better and do the things that you're not doing, or you go fix the things from your past that are destroying you from moving forward, you're going to be blown away by what you can do with that stuff moving forward. And eventually, as you get past it, you're going to find more freedom. You're going to be able to evolve because, to your point, you're going to take more rocks out of that bag, and because you finally identified what those rocks actually are through a mechanism. So if you either do it with I'm proud of you, or you hire a coach, or you hire somebody that's going to get in your world and watch how much you start to evolve, because that's the beauty ultimately of running a business, is you will finally meet the dude in the mirror, and you'll evolve to the person you wish you had years ago in your life because you've actually gone through it.
Awesome, Donnie. You know, look, you have so much great knowledge, and folks, I'm going to put a plug in for your business summit. It's the Badass Business Summit coming up. You got another one coming up right now.
Yeah, September 20th through the 23rd, Fort
20th
Worth,
through the
Texas.
23rd. So, folks, right now, take a second. I'll put a link down below. Sign up right now. Look, it's worth going to. I promise you, the stuff that Donnie has in his summit will change your business world. Look, if you're looking for that spark to get re-engaged, join the summit. Step out of the confusion. Step out of the places where you don't know. Get on board with a great business coach like Donnie and watch what happens to you, not just who you are in the world, how you walk on the planet, how you walk, not just in the business world, but how your family life changes, your community life changes, the dramatic things that happen when we bring on great coaches. And I'll make sure the links are down below, Donnie. So that's September, one more time.
20th through the 24th, Fort Worth, Texas, badassbusinesssummit.com.
Badassbusinesssummit.com. Do not miss that. You guys will love it. And please put any of the comments you have down below. As always,
Hey,
when we
Anthony,
get,
can I do one quick thing for you before we
yeah,
get out of here?
yeah, go for it.
Guys, if we made it this far in the conversation, you're still hanging out with us, and you got any sort of value out of this whatsoever, do Anthony the greatest favor and share this episode with one person, either this episode or one of his other episodes. I can promise you, having my own show, building an audience is one of the toughest things in the world. So if you're getting value out of this and you think somebody else should, man, share this out for them, because it's literally like giving a virtual hug. And this is how businesses are grown, is when two people who are trying to do great things can lift each other up, support each other, and bring value to each other's audiences. Man, give this gift to one other person and watch how much it impacts their lives. It'll be one of the coolest things you ever do.
I am so grateful for you and everything that you're on, everything that you do, Donnie. It's great work, and let's put a plug in for your website as well.
So yeah, you can find more information at DonnieBovine.com and SuccessChampionNetworking.com, and just find me on social media at Donnie Bovine, and come tell me hi. I can tell you, for me, the coolest thing you can do for me is take a screenshot of wherever you're listening to this. Tag Anthony and I in us. Let us know that you got value out of us. Give us one of your takeaways, and I promise I will find that post, come reply to it. Anthony will come find that post and come reply to it.
Everyone,
Let us know that you got value out of this.
great. Thanks again for being on the show.
Absolutely, my honor.
Awesome, bro. Thanks.